Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D printing video, and in this video we're going to be looking at this Ender 2. So there's a few more things that I've done to this and I want to do, and there's actually a pretty major issue that I found on this thing that needs to be addressed. So let's get started. So first of all guys, I want to say that I've been enjoying this Ender 2 a whole bunch. This has been such an enjoyable experience, and the quality of the prints that are coming out of this machine are just awesome. So I definitely love the Ender 2, but I will have to say that it's very quirky overall. There's a lot of little things that you have to look after in order for it to have a good print. And if you guys seen my previous videos, you know that I've fixed already quite a few things on this thing, and there's actually more to fix. A lot of these things, you know, are pretty logical for someone that's been printing for a long time, but for a beginner, this is all a new experience and it's a learning curve to figure out all these things. And if you're new to 3D printing but you want to learn all the aspects, what goes into 3D printing, the mechanics of it, the Ender 2 seems like a perfect choice for that. So one of the new things I'm trying out is this fan duct here that I printed out instead of the original cover that goes here. So we'll talk about this in a little bit. Let's go ahead and go straight to the major problem that I'm having here. And let me explain it first and then, you know, I'll show you. So the best way to explain this is that this axis here that goes this way is not square with this axis that goes this way. So what's happening is my prints are offset a little bit, and I didn't realize this until I had to print something that was square. And so whenever the square was not square, that's when I realized something was wrong. Let me just show you how much off it is. So if you're looking at it straight like this, and what I'm going off of is the little lines here on the bed, and the bed is pretty square obviously. So if I go back just a little bit, you can see how the lines on the bed do not line up with the x-axis here, this piece right here at all. Like this needs to go in quite a bit, as you can see how much off that is. And so because of that, I was getting an offset. You know, if I was going to print a square, obviously that wasn't going to be square. And so that brings me to this little model I printed out right here, well, which is kind of like a cutoff saw little holder for a Dremel. But as you can see, everything printed out really good, and the Ender 2 is what printed this whole thing. And I don't know if you guys will be able to tell. The bottom here is a little bit rough because it was trying to come up as it was printing. It might be hard to tell, but this thing is not square. It's actually shifted a bit. You can kind of see on the crack right there on the very top here, if you look at this blue, and as I go up, you can see that that is off quite a bit. So it's not square, and so it's kind of making all the parts misalign. Like because it's twisted this way, this is kind of, you know, twisted that way also. So it's all a little bit off, which is not good when you're trying to print, you know, some more precision things. So it looks like that somehow I need to, you know, straighten this out. And what I need to do, I think, is there is a bracket here that holds it. I'm going to loosen that. And then there's a couple bolts right here that go through there. Yeah, I haven't took off my sticker either, by the way, guys. I'm still going to be building something for the bottom here. But yeah, these two bolts here is the ones that hold this whole frame here. So I'm going to loosen all that, and I'm going to try to spin it this way and then tighten them all and see if this gets straight. So I'm going to loosen this guy here. Then we're going to go to the bottom of this thing and loosen these. So obviously this was overlooked when I was building it, putting it together as a kit, and being new to 3D printing and assembling. This is my first assemble, by the way. You know, I overlooked this. So I loosened those both pieces, and it looks like we got quite a bit of play here that I think we can straighten this guy out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it this way as much as possible and then tighten the bolts, or that's the idea. Hopefully it works. All right guys, so I got it tightened. Let me show you now. Look how straight that line is. It's pretty much perfect. So I think we got it. So this was definitely an assembly issue here, or at least an overlook in the assembly process. So that was definitely my fault. So now I should have very, very square prints, since both of my axes are squared exactly, you know, 90 degrees from each other. Alright, so the next issue is actually the rollers. So if you've seen my other video where I've glued all these rollers because they're actually defective and they have a washer in between the two bearings and it's too large, and so it's making a little like a wobble. And so these wheels here that go up and down are completely loose, and you can see how much that moves, guys. I mean, that's quite a bit right there. And I definitely don't like that. Just for the idea that, you know, it could be here when it starts and then it vibrates out a little bit, and then that's why you have a layer shift. So even though these are going to be a lot harder to get out, I think it'll be worth it to get them out and glue them like I did the other ones, which all the other ones are holding up great. I glued these where the hot end rides and it's perfect. And the bed has been flawless also down there. So we're going to take these guys off, glue them, and then put them back in. So here's all the pieces from that, and you know, that just goes like that and the bolt goes through it. But you can see how these bearings just fall out of there basically. And this is actually the culprit right here. This little washer, it's a little too thick. And so what happens when it's a little too thick, there's a little lip inside the wheel. And so that lip doesn't get smashed by these bearings whenever they're tightened, because the spacer in between is keeping it from doing that. And that's what causes the wobble inside, because it's not gripping to the wheel, to this piece here. And so there's a few ways to fix this. If you just took this spacer out, what would happen is you're going to put a lot of pressure on the bearings, because they're going to want to try to come together, and so there's going to be a lot of force pulling them together, you know, trying to cramp this. So what you're going to have most likely is not a smooth bearing. So the best thing to do, at least what I found works extremely well, is just to glue these into here. Just a very small amount of glue, you know, then you're going to put your little spacer back in there in between, you know, and then put a little more glue in there and put this in. And when that cures, it's solid as a rock. And that's what I've been doing to all my rollers. Alright, so I went ahead and glued all these and put them back together. It wasn't very hard at all. So all you do is unscrew these little nuts in the back. And the harder one is kind of over here. There's a nut right there to get. But once you get all those unscrewed, all this just pops out, and you know, you can get to all the wheels easily. Alright, so now that we're done with this, we're going to let that cure. And the next thing we'll go to is this fan shroud. So I downloaded this fan duct here in Thingiverse, and it seems like a pretty good design, and I think this is a pretty popular upgrade here. So it kind of makes it where it's blowing on the radiator there, and also, as you can see, it's tilted kind of 45 degrees. It's kind of blowing down at the same time, which, you know, gives you a lot more air under here, or a little bit more air. So the other kind of plus about upgrading this is that this is much lighter, even though it's a little bigger maybe, but you know, since this is made out of metal, it's quite a bit heavier than this duct, so that gives it a little bit more agility also. But one thing I don't like about it is the way it mounts. So the original one mounted right here, these two screws here, like straight into the metal, and this is metal, so it's a nice solid mount. But the new one actually goes through the extruder hot end here. Basically the bolts that hold the hot end here hold the shroud at the same time, and that's the part I don't like. Let me go ahead and open this and I'll show you. It's not that big of a deal, but because you have plastic in between your radiator there and your bolts, it seems to be like, you know, it's not as tight as it was before. So the fan just comes from here on the inside and just mounts straight onto here, which is really nice. And you can see, guys, right there, those two bolts right there, they go through the duct, this plastic duct, and then go through the extruder here, you know, and then go into the metal. So the part I don't like is that these seem to get loose a little bit. Let me see if it got loose any. Yeah, it did get a little bit loose. You know, since you're going into plastic, you're never going to have that super solid. But it's not too bad. I mean, it seems to be holding on. I mean, I guess, especially in the beginning, you might have to go in there and tighten it a few times. So because of that, I added a little bit of dab of glue right there. If you can see, there's a little bit of glue between this plastic here and the bolt right there. There's like a bridge of glue right there. So now it's a lot more sturdy now than it ever was. So, and that's very important, because you don't want this thing to move while you're printing. And this thing moving side to side, this tube here and the wires, they kind of bend it back and forth, making it move if it has any kind of give. So this kind of solidifies that whole point, where it doesn't do those micro moves at all. So yeah, this is a pretty simple upgrade, and it seems like definitely a good one, because not only you're losing weight, but you're getting a lot better airflow down to the nozzle over here. So here in just a second, I'm going to show you 2 prints that I've done with and without. And so here are the 2 benchies that I printed. I don't know, before I tell you which one it is, I wonder if you can notice. Put them side by side like this. Or which one is which. But you can probably tell kind of. As you can see, guys, it's not that big of a difference, but there is a difference. And obviously what you're looking for is overhangs. So this one here is with the new shroud upgrade, and this is the original. So if we look here on the top, right there by that window, and then we look on that one, you see how much cleaner that is? It's quite a bit cleaner. And then we move to the side, we can see, take a note of that, and then we'll go straight to this one. You can see it's a little bit better. And here on the back window, you can see that it's quite a bit better also. So as you can see, it's definitely working, and it's, you know, mostly on the overhangs. If you're going to print parts that have a lot of overhangs, I think this thing is a must to upgrade to. Now I know there's better ones and better upgrades and, you know, whatever, but this is the most simplest one that, you know, you can just print and put it on there. So, and I did print this just at a regular PLA, black PLA, so. And it seems to be holding up just fine. It's not melting or anything. Doesn't seem like that, at least. But here on the flat spots here, there's not really much of a difference that you can see. This is the one with the extra airflow. It might look a little better, I'm not sure, but they're pretty much identical. So it's not as drastic as I thought it would be, but it's definitely in the details. And this machine is already detailed enough, so this will just take it a little bit to the next level, I guess, especially for overhangs. So adding the fan duct upgrade here is kind of a double-edged sword, because the more cooling you have under here, the harder it is for the first layer to stick. And not that I've been experiencing too much issue, I don't think, but I've definitely noticed for some reason lately, since at least I installed this thing, I've had a little bit of a harder time sticking to the bed. And the way this fan is set up right now is you can't adjust it to be off, let's say for the first layer or whatever, or even adjust the speed of how fast it turns on the first layer. And so to my surprise, there's actually a way you can do that. And all it is we need to go inside of this box here and just re-plug the fan. And that'll give us the functionality of controlling the speed of it. So what we're gonna need to do is we need to take off this plastic cover here. So once you get the 1, 2, 3 bolts out, this cover should just come straight up, just like that. And here on the inside, we can see the board that controls the whole thing. So to my understanding, we need to find the plug that's going to the fan right now, the power plug, and then just re-plug it to another one that's empty over here. So looking down on the board, you can see right there, that plug right there says K-fan, and that's what we're trying to plug into. And over here you can see it says fan 1. That's what we're going to unplug from and go to K-fan, and that should be it. So I'm just going to unplug from the fan 1, I think is what it says there, and then we're just going to skip over one and plug into the K-fan, just like that. So now we should be able to get a function where we can control our main fan on the top there. So, but the part that's more important is that you'll be able to put the fan speed in the slicer, like in Cura that I'm using, and that fan speed will be adjusted to this thing. So I'm not sure exactly how accurate that is or what, but it seems to work. At least it does slow it down a little bit. That seems to have the effect of the control on the fan. So, all right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to print a test print. So I got my bed adjusted because I had to readjust it after moving all this stuff around. It was off a little bit. And I also changed the filament to blue here in the back. So we're going to print this test print right here, all in one 3D test print. And that's probably going to take a while, probably about 5 hours or so. And I'm printing it at 0.2 millimeters layer height and about 50 on the speed. So we'll see how that turns out. That's definitely a pretty big square there to print. So it appears to be pretty good. It looks like it's sticking to the bed perfectly. And not only that, guys, it looks like it's square, as what I can tell. The lines all line up pretty much perfect. So as that's printing, let me show you guys this thing that I built here. So this is like a little cut-off little jig, whatever you want to call it. And you put your rotary tool part through here, the extension part. with a blade, and then it cuts. So this thing it turned out really good overall, except for not being completely square. Other than that, it's pretty cool. Most of the things that I'm kind of proud of are these bolts and nuts here on the side, and I can just unscrew that by hand. So I got a little washer here, a little nut, and you can see the bolt through there. Here's the other side, and this part just comes out just like that. And as you can see that we have a solid piece here, and then we have some threads at the end. And I was so happy because the tolerance all were perfect. So this is supposed to be 8 millimeters, but I printed the bolt at 7.9, and it turned out perfect, literally. Like, it's literally perfection. This part kind of went in there hard, so I'm not gonna pull it out because this piece printed like this flat, but this piece printed like standing up like this, so that hole is perfect there. But still, everything turned out great, and I'm really happy that I was able to build this thing. And this is one of the things that got me into 3D printing, is knowing that, you know, the possibilities are endless, and it's just all about your imagination. And the funnest part is that you can take people's creation from Thingiverse and just kind of, you know, work on that, or just get ideas from that, and you know, build your own thing. This piece right here is actually a piece I started printing, and then I realized that, as you can see here, the hole is way too small because my rotary tool was not a Dremel. It was just a different kind, and there's no way it was going to fit into that, obviously, so I had to customize that a little bit. Yeah, and then I just got a little spring here, kind of stretched it out, and you know, now it's a perfect little spring. But here you can see, guys, that because it's not square like I was talking about, this is where this kind of like this odd part comes in right here. Like, it doesn't completely land where it needs to because it's not square here. So it's kind of flexing, you can see, look at that. So now that I have my printer squared, and this is the piece that made me realize that I needed to square it, you know, I should be able to build really good things now with that. So as you can see, guys, we're having a really clean first layer here. So it looks like the fan did slow down a bit, because normally I don't get that nice of a first layer, or at least I haven't before, because you can see this guy right here, you know, it was trying to bubble all up all the time. And I knew I had my level pretty good. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but you can see here we're doing a lot better here on the first layer. Almost perfect, I would say, actually. So also, guys, I want to show you this grenade. So my son wanted a little grenade just for fun as a toy, and I found this one, and it's a pretty good design overall. It actually came in pieces. It's actually glued right here through the middle. You can kind of see the part where it was glued. There's like a little seam there, and this top part is also glued. So, and then this part is glued too. So it's not perfect, but the reason I'm showing you this is because I forgot to turn on retraction. And here's a little clip of what it looked like when the retraction was off, and I was getting, you know, pretty terrible stringing everywhere. So that was no fun for sure to see that, but I went ahead and let it print because I was kind of curious to see, you know, how would I be able to clean that up with that kind of stringing. And here you guys can see this is basically how it turned out. So there's, you know, little dots here and there, but you know, from a little bit of a distance you can see it still looks very good. Alright, so it looks like the first layer is going on great, so I'm just gonna let it do its thing, and I'll update you guys as it keeps growing. Alright, and so the 3D printing test is done, and I'm gonna run a little clip here on the side so you get the little updates as it built. So everything seemed to go pretty good overall, and you can see here up front the lettering turned out pretty good. So this is printed at 0.2, so it's not a really high resolution, so I'm not expecting this thing to be great, but mostly we're just looking at overhangs and things like that. So here is the top, you can see a little better, so it all looks pretty good. So here's some really thin poles here, but I accidentally broke this one off. So it didn't do too bad being that thin. All over this thing there's some kind of words, and you can barely make out some of them. I think this one says bridging test here, and that's these guys here, and the bridging did very well. There's a little bit of sag obviously on this long one, but it's not that bad. So over here we got some kind of little test here with holes, like little holes in between. But let's look at the most important part here, is the degrees of overhang here. So here we have one that is pretty sharp. It goes 15, 30, 45, 60, 75. So it goes in 15 increments. And then we got a more subtle one that goes in 10. And so looking at this thing, it seems like you can go all the way to 60 with reasonable results. So if we look at 60 on the bottom, it doesn't look too bad. And here's 60 on here. It's still printable. I would say 50 is for the, if you want the best quality overhang, maybe 55, you could push that. And then, 60s would be getting into territory where it starts to get funny. And you definitely don't want to go to 70s probably. You could. It's still not terrible. It's still actually, if you look at it right there, it's still hanging on. And this is 80 right here, this whole piece. So as you can see, even 80 is doing reasonable. 70 is hanging on. 60s definitely a lot, quite a bit better. And then 50 is perfect. So if you want a great overhang, then 55 probably be the max, but you could go higher if you wanted to. So I'm pretty happy with the results, and it's about exactly what I was expecting, to be honest. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be better or worse, but it looks good to me. And if you're having issues with the printer, this will be able to tell you a lot of things about the printer and how it's doing and what needs to be adjusted. So this is a really cool little 3D printing test. Alright guys, so I'm very pleased about all that I have done to this printer, and it's turned into a printer that I can really enjoy now, and this one is definitely a fun printer to play with. So the fan duct here I think is a great upgrade. It gives you that a little bit extra cooling, which helps on the overhangs, and it's a very simple upgrade. If you got any kind of wobble in anywhere, check your little wheels, because they could be loose, and gluing them seems to work excellent. And most importantly, make sure your printer is square. Everything is lined up like it's supposed to, because if it's not perfectly square, you won't get square prints. And also it seems like the switch here to the K-fan seems to be helping. So yeah, I've learned a lot, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm enjoying the process. If you guys are enjoying these kind of videos and want to see more of this kind of stuff, and you're not subscribed, then hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video and it was useful, then hit that like button. And also guys, I'm pretty excited because the next 3D printing video should be of me unboxing a new printer. And to give you a little clue, it's a very well-known printer, and I'm sure it will not surprise most of you, but I'm pretty excited about this because we're gonna go to a bigger bed. So that's pretty exciting. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.